The transport ship landed on the stone of Prime's largest moon. Park stepped out into the cold air and looked up at the building in front of her. The Galactic Academy of Martial Excellence was huge. Its walls were made of black metal and white stone. Towers reached toward the purple sky. For 3,000 years, students from across the galaxy had come here to learn how to fight with blades. Was 17 years old. She was small even for a human. Her black hair was tied back in a simple knot. Her eyes were dark and calm. She wore plain clothes that had seen better days. On her back, she carried a long case made of old leather. Other students walked past her without looking. She saw tall creatures with hard shells covering their bodies. She saw thin beings with too many arms. She saw species she had never seen before in her life. None of them cared about another human. Humans were nothing special in the galaxy. They lived short lives. They had no special powers. Their planet was gone. Earth had burned 15 years ago. Remembered it. She was only 2 years old, but she remembered the fire in the sky. She remembered her uncle carrying her through smoke and screaming people. She remembered the inside of a ship, packed with frightened humans. She remembered looking out a small window and seeing her world die. The Ravagers had come without warning. They ate planets. They consumed everything. Earth lasted 3 days. 8 million humans survived, scattered across 12 star systems, refugees with no home. Walked toward the main building. The long case on her back felt heavy, not because of its weight, because of what it meant. At the registration desk, a large alien blocked her path. His name was Instructor. He was with scales and 4 arms. 2 of his arms were crossed over his chest. The other 2 held a tablet. "Name?" he asked. His voice was rough like stones rubbing together. "Park, human. Earth refugee, currently registered on Station 17 in the Outer Belt." Looked at his tablet. "You scored high on the entrance tests, surprising for a human." He looked at the case on her back. "What is that?" "A sword. Personal weapons go to the armory. You will use training sabers like everyone else. Academy rules." His hand moved to the strap of the case. "My uncle said it stays with me." "Your uncle is not here." "No." His voice stayed calm. "He died. He died getting me off Earth. He held a corridor against 9 Ravagers so 300 people could reach the ships. I was one of them. This sword was his. It stays with me." Secondary arms moved in a small twitch. Among this meant discomfort. He had heard stories about the burning. Everyone had. The day humanity almost ended. "Very well," he said after a long pause. "But it stays in its case during classes. You will use training sabers for practice and duels. Those are the rules." Bowed. It was a human gesture, formal and respectful. Found it strange but said nothing. She walked into the academy. The hallways were wide and filled with students. Most of them were bigger than her. All of them carried training sabers at their sides. The training sabers were made of special material that could sting and bruise but never cut. They were safe. They were modern. They hummed with energy when activated. The case on its back held something very different. "Hey!" A voice came from behind her, turned and saw another human. He was older than her, maybe 19 or 20. His name was Lee. He was taller than her, with short hair and worried eyes. "You're the new human student," he said. "I'm the only other one here. Was the only other one. I guess now there are 2 of us." "Nice to meet you," said. Looked at the case on her back. "Is that what I think it is?" "It's a sword." "A real one, not a training saber." "A real one." Let out a long breath. "Listen, I need to warn you about something. The other students here, they like to test new people, especially humans. We're small. We're weak compared to most species. We don't have hard shells or extra arms or special abilities. They think we're easy targets." "I'm not here to fight," said. "That doesn't matter. Someone will challenge you, probably in the first week. It's how things work here. They want to see what you're made of." He looked at the case again. What are you going to do when that happens? Started walking again, followed. I'll do what my uncle taught me, she said. And what's that? She didn't answer. Her room was small and simple. A bed, a desk, a window that looked out at the landscape of the moon. She set down her bag and carefully placed the sword case against the wall. Then she sat on the bed and looked at it. The case was old. The leather was cracked and worn. It had traveled far, from Earth to Station 17, from Station 17 to 3 other stations, and now here to an academy on a moon far from anywhere that had ever been home. Inside the case was a blade made of folded steel. It was 400 years old. It had been carried by her uncle and by his teacher before him and by her teacher before her. Generation after generation of people who had chosen to protect others. Closed her eyes, she could almost hear her uncle's voice. The sword is not a weapon, he used to say. It is a choice. Every time you draw it, you choose who you want to be. She opened her eyes. Through the window, she could see other students walking across the courtyard. Big, strong, powerful beings from across the galaxy. They had no idea what was coming. 3 days passed, went to classes. She learned the academy's rules. She practiced with a training saber like everyone else. She was quiet, she was polite, she did not cause trouble. But everywhere she went, the case followed on her back. Students whispered about it. What was inside? Why did she carry it everywhere? Some said it was empty, just a trick to make people curious. Others said it was a family relic, something humans kept to remember their dead planet. A few said it was a real weapon, but that was impossible. Who would bring a real weapon to an academy that used training sabers? On the 3rd day, the whispers turned into something else. Was alone in the practice hall. It was evening and most students had gone to eat dinner. She liked the empty hall. She could move through her forms without people watching. The training saber felt wrong in her hands, too light, too smooth, but she used it anyway. Rules were rules. The door opened. She didn't stop her form. She finished the movement, turned, and saw who had entered. He was one of the warrior species that dominated the academy. He stood 8 feet tall. His body was covered in hard shell, dark brown and thick. He had 4 arms like the, but bigger, stronger. His face had mandibles that clicked when he talked. Behind him came 12 other students. Different species, different sizes, all watching with hungry eyes. Walked toward, his steps were heavy on the stone floor. Human, he said. His voice was deep and echoed in the empty hall. I have been watching you. I know, said. She held the training saber loosely at her side. 3 days and you say nothing, you do nothing. You carry that case like it means something, but you never open it. His mandibles clicked together. Among this was a smile. I think it is empty. I think you are empty too. Just another weak human pretending to be something more. Said nothing. My family has produced champions for 6 generations, continued. My grandfather killed 100 enemies in the Battle of Prime. My father leads a fleet of warships, and me, I have never lost a duel, not once. He drew his training saber. The polymer blade hummed as it came alive. I challenge you, human, first blood, academy rules. The students behind him laughed. Looked at them. Then she looked at who stood at the edge of the group, his face pale with worry. First blood, she repeated. Academy rules say the challenge can choose weapons. Choose whatever you want, training saber, bare hands that stick on your back. His mandibles clicked again. It will not matter. Set down the training saber. She reached up and took the case from her back. Her fingers found the old clasps, worn smooth by generations of hands. The hall went quiet. She opened the case. Inside was a blade unlike anything they had seen. It was not polymer. It was not energy. It was steel, dark and folded, with patterns in the metal like water moving. The edge caught the light and seemed to glow. The handle was wrapped in leather so old it had shaped itself to fit a human grip. drew the sword. The sound it made was soft like a whisper. "This sword is 400 years old," she said. Her voice was calm, the same as always. "It was made on Earth, before we knew other planets had life, before we had ships or stations or anything but our own world." "A museum piece," said, but his voice had changed. Something about the blade made him uncomfortable. "My uncle carried it. Before him, his teacher carried it. Before her, another teacher. For 400 years it was passed from hand to hand, from protector to protector." Moved into a stance. Her weight dropped low. The blade angled across her body. "My uncle used this sword to kill 9 Ravagers during the burning. He stood in a corridor for 6 hours. He did not let them pass. 300 people escaped because of him." The laughter had stopped completely. "I was 2 years old," continued. "I watched him fight. I watched him fall. And before he died, he gave me this sword and told me what it meant." "What did it mean?" The question came from one of the students in the back, voice barely above a whisper. "Looked at, it meant that some things are worth dying for, and some things are worth living for. The sword helps you know the difference." Raised his training saber. His stance was perfect, trained by the best teachers money could buy. His shell was thick enough to stop most blades. He was bigger, stronger, faster than this small human girl. But his hands were shaking. "First blood," he said. "First blood," agreed. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The students held their breath. Even who had warned her, who had told her not to fight, found himself leaning forward. Then attacked. Was fast. For a creature his size, he moved like water. His training saber cut through the air towards shoulder. It was a good strike, powerful and precise. Any normal opponent would have been hit. Was not there. She moved. It was a small movement, just a half step to the side, a slight turn of her hip. The blade passed through empty air where she had been a heartbeat before. Did not stop. He was a champion. He had trained since he was a child. His second strike came immediately, faster than the first, aimed at her ribs. Again she was not there. The watching students could not understand what they were seeing. The human girl was not blocking. She was not running away. She was simply existing in the spaces between attacks, like smoke slipping through fingers. Roared. His 4 arms moved together, training saber becoming a blur of strikes. High, low, left, right. Any one of them would have ended the fight. Any one of them would have proven that we're superior, that humans were weak, that this girl with her old sword was nothing. None of them touched her. And then it happened. Moved, not away this time. Forward. Her ancient blade whispered through the air, a sound so soft it was almost nothing. It touched primary arm just above the wrist in the tiny gap where his shell segments met. Pale blood welled up from a thin line. The hall was silent. Stopped moving. He looked down at his arm. The cut was small, barely a scratch, but it was there. His shell, which was supposed to turn aside military-grade weapons, had been opened by a 400-year-old blade made by people who had never seen a first blood, said. She flicked the sword in a quick motion, cleaning it of the single drop of blood. Then she sheathed it in one smooth movement, metal sliding into the case with a soft click. How? His voice was strange, broken. How is that possible? My shell can stop plasma rounds. It can turn aside cutting beams. How did your primitive sword cut through it? Looked at him. Her eyes held something that might have been sadness. The people who made this sword did not know about, she said. They did not know about plasma or cutting beams or starships. They only knew about Earth. They knew about steel armor and chain mail. They knew about enemies who wore protection and thought it made them safe. She picked up the case and slipped it back onto her shoulders. So they made a blade that could cut through anything. They folded the steel 1,000 times. They shaped it with fire and hammer and patience. They made it perfect. Not because they wanted to kill, but because they wanted to protect. And when you want to protect badly enough, you find ways to cut through whatever stands in your path. stood frozen. Around him, the other students were equally still. No one knew what to say. Your shell is strong, continued, but it has gaps, small places where the segments meet, where the material is thin. A training saber cannot find those gaps. A plasma round cannot aim for them. But a human with 400 years of knowledge behind her, she knows exactly where to cut. She walked toward the door. The students moved aside to let her pass. Wait! The voice came from instructor. He stood in the doorway, his scales catching the light, had not seen him arrive. She did not know how long he had been watching. That technique, said, the movement you used, the angle of the cut. I have studied blade combat for 60 years. I have records of fighting styles from across the galaxy. What you did is not in any of them. No, agreed, it would not be. Where did you learn it? My uncle taught me. He learned from his teacher. She learned from her teacher. 400 years of knowledge passed from person to person, hand to hand. His voice was quiet but clear. We call it tradition. We call it lineage. We call it the things that survive when everything else burns. Secondary arms twitched. Why is it not recorded? Why is it not in any database? Looked at him for a long moment. In the hall behind her still stood motionless, staring at the thin line of blood on his arm. Because some things are too important to trust to machines, she said. Databases can be lost, files can be deleted, planets can burn, but knowledge that lives in human minds, passed from teacher to student through practice and patience and love, that survives, that endures, that is what makes us human. She bowed to instructor, that same formal gesture she had used on her first day. My uncle is dead, she said. My planet is dead. My people are scattered across the galaxy like dust, but what he taught me is alive. It lives in my hands and my heart and my memory, and as long as I live, it will never die. She walked out of the hall. Behind her, no one moved for a very long time. Word spread through the academy like fire. By the next morning, everyone knew about the human girl and her ancient blade. They knew she had cut shell with a sword made of simple steel. They knew she had moved in ways no one could explain. They knew she had beaten without even trying. The challenges came quickly after that. A student challenged her. They were small and fast, with reflexes that could see attacks before they happened. Beat him in 6 seconds. A challenged her. He had 4 arms and used 2 blades at once. Beat him without drawing blood, simply touching her sword to his throat before he could complete his first strike. 3 students challenged her together, thinking numbers would help. Moved through them like wind through leaves. 3 thin lines of blood, 3 yields, all in less than a minute. She never refused a challenge. She never bragged after winning. She never hurt anyone more than necessary. First blood meant first blood. Once she drew blood, she stopped. This confused people more than anything else. Why don't you finish them? Asked the student named. She was with skin that shifted colors based on her mood. Right now it was purple with curiosity. You could beat anyone here. You could be champion. Why do you hold back? They were sitting in the dining hall. Ate simple food, rice and vegetables from a dispenser that tried to copy Earth cuisine. It never got it right, but she ate it anyway. Beating people is not why I'm here, said. Then why are you here? Thought about the question. She thought about her uncle, about the corridor on the burning ship, about the 9 Ravagers he had killed before they killed him. She thought about the weight of the sword on her back and what it meant. To learn, she said finally, and maybe to teach. Instructor found her after dinner. He asked her to come to his private training room. She agreed. The room was simple. Stone floor, bare walls, weapons racks holding every kind of blade imaginable. Stood in the center, his 4 arms behind his back. Show me, he said, everything your uncle taught you. I want to understand. Drew her sword. For an hour she moved through the forms. Each one had a name that meant nothing in any galactic language. Mountain stands against storm. River flows around stone. Moon rises over water. She explained each one as she performed it. This is for defense against multiple enemies. You move so they get in each other's way. This is for fighting in tight spaces. Small movements, minimal energy. This is for when you are tired and wounded but cannot stop. You let the sword do the work. Watched in silence, his eyes missed nothing. When she finished, he spoke. Your species created this before you had electricity. Yes. Before you had space travel. Yes. When you still thought you were alone in the universe. Yes. Scales shifted color, darker now. Why? Why spend 400 years perfecting something like this? Sheathed her sword, because we had to. Had to. Humans are not strong, we are not fast, we do not have shells or claws or special powers. When danger came, we could not run away or hide or wait for it to pass. We had to face it. She touched the sword at her hip. So we created ways to face it. We studied and practiced and passed our knowledge down, generation after generation, teacher to student, parent to child. But why this? Why the sword? You had guns by then, bombs, other weapons. Smiled, it was a small smile, sad and old for someone so young. The sword requires discipline, it requires practice. It requires you to be close to your enemy to see their face, to understand that you are taking something precious. Her hand stayed on the hilt. Guns are easy, bombs are easy. You press a button and death happens far away. But the sword makes you choose. Every time you draw it, you have to decide, is this worth killing for? Is this worth dying for? And what did you decide? I decided that I would rather protect than destroy. I decided that strength means nothing if you use it to hurt the weak. I decided that the sword is not a weapon. She met his eyes. It is a choice. The choice to stand between danger and the innocent. The choice to fight only when you must. The choice to stop when the fight is over. Was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer. The Ravagers came to other worlds before Earth. Mai was one of them. We fought back with our military, our technology, our weapons of mass destruction. His secondary arms moved slowly. We won, but we destroyed half our own planet doing it. Entire cities gone, millions dead from our own weapons. I'm sorry, said. Earth did not have time to make that mistake. The Ravagers came too fast, looked at her sword. But your uncle stopped 9 of them with a blade. No bombs, no weapons of mass destruction, just steel and skill and the choice to protect. He died, said quietly. Yes, but 300 people lived because of him. That is the math of protection. Sometimes one person dies so that many can live. The sword taught him that. It taught him that his life was not more important than theirs. Nodded, her eyes were wet but her voice stayed steady. Would you teach? Asked. Not just the forms, not just the techniques, but the philosophy, the idea that strength exists to shield the weak, the choice that the sword represents. My uncle would have wanted that, said. Then teach, not just here, everywhere. 4 arms spread wide. The galaxy needs this. We have forgotten that strength should protect. We have forgotten that restraint is its own kind of power. Remind us. Looked at him. This old warrior from a world that had burned itself to survive. This instructor who had seen violence beyond imagining. I'll try, she said. The annual tournament brought visitors from across the galaxy. Ships filled the landing pads. Dignitaries from 12 systems took their seats in the viewing stands. Military commanders, wealthy families, scholars, and warriors all came to watch the next generation prove themselves. The tournament had been held for 3,000 years. Champions made here became legends. This year they came for another reason. They came to see the human. Stories had spread beyond the academy walls. A refugee girl with an ancient blade, a sword that cut through shell, techniques that existed in no database. The galaxy was curious. The galaxy wanted to see. Stood in the arena center. She wore simple clothes, same as always. Her hair was tied back in the same knot. The sword hung at her hip, sheathed in its old leather case. Around her, thousands of eyes watched from the stands. Across from her stood her final opponent. Bora was the Academy's champion. She had held the title for 2 years. She was small and quick, with reflexes that bordered on precognition. She had never been touched in tournament combat. Her training saber hummed in her grip. "I have watched every fight you had this year," Bora said. Her voice was calm, professional. "You are good, better than good, but you hold back. Even against you held back." "Yes," agreed. "Why?" "Because my uncle taught me that true strength is restraint. Anyone can destroy. The difficult thing is to preserve." Bora's eyes narrowed. "You are faster than you show, stronger. You have been hiding your real ability since you arrived." "Not hiding, choosing." His hand rested on her sword's handle. "Everyone wants to see what I can do. They want to see speed and power and destruction. But that is not what the sword teaches. The sword teaches what not to do. It teaches when to stop." "Show me," Bora said. The signal sounded. The match began. Bora was extraordinary. Her blade became a blur. Strikes came from every angle, faster than most eyes could follow. Her body flowed through forms that seemed impossible, moving before attacks even began. Moved through it like walking through rain. She did not attack, did not press forward. She simply existed in the spaces between Bora's strikes. Her ancient blade caught each attack and turned it aside with minimum force. Steel sang against polymer, note after note, like music only she could hear. The crowd fell silent. They had expected violence. They had expected blood and victory and the human girl proving her strength. Instead, they watched something else. They watched a dance. They watched 2 warriors moving together, one attacking with everything she had, one deflecting without trying to hurt. Minutes passed. Bora's breath came hard, sweat ran down her face. Her strikes came slower now, fatigue pulling at her limbs, but looked the same as when they started. Calm, steady, untouched. "Fight me," Bora hissed. "Really fight me." "I am fighting," said. "I am fighting the desire to hurt you. I am fighting the anger I have carried since the burning. I am fighting every part of myself that wants to prove humans are not weak, not prey, not refugees to be." Her blade caught another strike. The motion was gentle, almost tender. "Every day I fight," continued. "Not with this sword, with what is in here." She touched her chest with her free hand. "That is what my uncle gave me, not techniques, not steel. The strength to choose who I want to be, even when I am afraid, even when I am angry, even when it would be easier to hurt." Bora stopped. Her training saber lowered. Her shoulders dropped. For a long moment she just stood there, breathing hard, looking at the human girl who had not tried to hit her even once. "I yield," Bora said. The arena erupted in confusion. The champion had yielded. The human had won without striking a single offensive blow. People shouted, argued, demanded to know what had happened. Instructor stepped into the arena. His voice carried across the crowd. "The match is over. The human wins." More shouting, more confusion. Raised her hand. The crowd went quiet. "My uncle taught me something," she said. Her voice was soft, but somehow everyone could hear it. "He taught me that the sword is not about winning. It is not about being the strongest or the fastest or the most skilled. It is about choice." She drew her blade. The ancient steel caught the light. 400 years ago, on a planet called Earth, people made this sword. They did not know other worlds existed. They did not know about or. They only knew that the world was dangerous and they wanted to protect the people they loved. She held the blade up so everyone could see. They passed it down, teacher to student, generation to generation, not just the sword but what it meant, the choice to stand between danger and the innocent, the choice to use strength for protection, not destruction, the choice to stop when the fight is over. Looked out at the crowd. Thousands of faces from dozens of species, all watching her. Earth is gone, my people are scattered, we have no home, no power, no place in the galaxy, but we still have this. She touched the blade to her heart. The knowledge that strength should protect, the belief that restraint is its own kind of power, the choice that makes us human. She sheathed the sword. I cannot give you this blade. It belongs to my lineage, to my uncle, to everyone who carried it before me. But the lesson does not belong to me. It does not belong to humans. It belongs to anyone willing to learn. Bora stepped forward. Teach me. Behind her, others moved. His arm healed now, who had warned her on her first day, students from every species pushing through the crowd. Teach us, they said. Looked at them. These beings from across the galaxy, children of worlds that had never burned, asking a human refugee to show them how to be strong. Her uncle would have smiled. The sword is 400 years old, she said, but the lesson is older than steel, older than earth. It lives wherever someone chooses to protect instead of destroy, wherever someone uses strength to shield the weak instead of crush them. She looked at instructor. He nodded slowly. Very well, said, I will teach. Years later, they told stories about her. The human girl with the ancient blade who taught the galaxy what strength really meant. Her students spread across 12 systems, carrying her lessons with them. They became warriors and teachers and protectors in their own right. And on 100 worlds, in 100 languages, people learned the truth that had learned from her uncle, who learned it from his teacher, who learned it from hers. That the strongest weapon is not steel or energy or force. It is the choice we make every day about who we want to be.